Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lieutenant Stephen Rogers here on the East Coast of the United States of America. It is 7 o'clock p.m. and thank you for joining us this evening. We have a wonderful guest tonight who I'll introduce shortly. A few updates I want to share with you with regard to, let's begin with first. And I think it's appropriate that since we do have a pretty large following that's growing from the United Kingdom, we certainly send the people of the United Kingdom, the royal family, and others who have certainly followed and admired the Queen, we send to you our condolences. When you talk about dignity, and you talk about honor, and you talk about really upholding what is right and just, I really believe that the Queen demonstrated that throughout the years of service, 70 years. I mean, that's a lot of years. So to you, our prayers certainly are with you this week. Now, folks, let's start with something that I want to give you an update on, and that's Project Maple Leaf. Well, we're going to be having another meeting this week. We've been meeting all along, and we've been quite quiet about it because the work we're doing is pretty intense. But we've got the information we need with regard to establishing executive summaries, putting them together, and getting those summaries to every single congressman and senator in the United States, and also members of your parliament. Everything we have is corroborated by 2 or 3 people, unless we have something on video, which pictures don't lie. And I got to tell you, it's damning, very damning. And we plan to get that into the hands of the people I just shared with you, as well as the media moving forward. And like I said, we're not looking to crucify anybody. We're looking to make sure that freedom and liberty continue to stand in freedom-loving countries around the world, and in this case, in Canada. I've said all along, folks, that the Canadian government, as it stands now, with Trudeau as Prime Minister, is, in my view, a national security threat to the United States of America. And we feel we have the evidence. We feel we have enough for our lawmakers to take significant action as we move forward. And we're going to do the best we could. And public awareness is pretty high now in America as to what's going on, which leads me to this. This past week, I did a number of television hits, One American News, Newsmax, Fox, etc. But something occurred on One American News the night before last. In fact, what occurred, you're going to see posted either late tonight or tomorrow. It's a very short thing, but very significant. I was being interviewed by the host with regard to some of the crime surges we have across America. And indeed, we do. And it's something we're going to deal with come November. So we're moving along in our interview from one subject to another. And the last segment of that interview was a question regarding Canada. And I was surprised, but pleasantly surprised. And I thought, well, here's my chance to speak to millions of people throughout the United States. And I knew it would be a short segment. So I had to get in what I had to get in, and I got it in. And here's what happened. What the host was talking about was a segue from crime in America to the tragedy that happened in Canada this past week. And certainly it was a tragedy. 10 innocent people killed and others seriously wounded, an unspeakable tragedy. But you see, in America, we're numb to this because it happens every weekend here. As I shared with you the other night, in Chicago, 26 killed, 12 others injured through crimes. New York City, another half a dozen or so shot. But we know it's not numb to you. We know it's new to you. And so here was an opportunity that I believe I had to speak to Trudeau and the Canadian Parliament, because I'm sure they all watch these American broadcasts. And basically I said this, that if Justin Trudeau and the Canadian Parliament spent more time committing their law enforcement resources to reforming their judicial system that would favor victims and not criminals, take their resources with regard to law enforcement and take them away from spying on and arresting and basically committing acts of violence against the Canadian people, and particularly the protesters who protested peacefully, and dedicated more of those resources to real criminals and killers, like the ones that committed this terrible act, maybe, just maybe, you could prevent something like that from happening again, or at least minimize it. Now, why did I say that? I didn't say all of that in the broadcast, but that's what people, I'm sure, understood I was saying. The fact of the matter is that if the resources of the American government were on protecting crime victims, if the resources were not on the issue of gun control, but crime control, we would not be facing the tragedy after tragedy after tragedy that we're facing today. So Trudeau and his government, maybe you should learn something from America. Get off the backs of law-abiding citizens. Give your people the right to bear arms, as we have in America. And in America now, we're finding across the country that the courts are realizing that a man or a woman who legally carries a gun is the only force that will be necessary to take out a man or woman who carries a gun illegally and uses it illegally. The point is, it's not the gun. It is the person who pulls the trigger. And I also said this on the air. It is not only the person who pulls the trigger, it is the people who allow and embolden the bad guys to do the criminal acts that they do. And you know who that is? That's you, Mr. Trudeau. You know who that is? Every member of parliament who supports policies that want to take the ability of law-abiding citizens to protect themselves away. In America, the politicians who took that position, and I want you to watch this, Mr. Trudeau, and the Canadian Parliament members who are addressing these issues, watch what happens in November. Watch what happens to the United States of America in November of this year, only a few weeks, because just about every seat in the United States Congress and Senate is going to be turned over to the Republican Party, the party who believes in the Second Amendment here, the right to bear arms, the party that supports freedom and liberty, the party that's going to get rid of the critical race theory and the communist influence that we've had here for too long. And I ask you to watch carefully, because there's going to be a domino effect, and it's going to be around the world, but it's going to start here in America, and it's not going to go south of the border. It's going to go north of the border, and it's going to go right to the doors of your parliament. So you think about that as we move forward here in America. This is why one of the greatest alliances ever, I believe, in the history of the world is what we saw took place soon after the protest in Canada, the peaceful protest in Canada. And that alliance is between the people of the United States of America and Canada, like never before in the history, I believe, of the world, and I know of, between these two nations. So we'll be talking more about that as we move forward. Like I said, we'll post a video from One America News either late tonight or tomorrow. It's a short segment, but basically that's what I said. Now, one other thing before I introduce our guests. I normally don't read emails, and I'm not going to do it right now. I'll do it towards the end of our broadcast. But there was an email that I received that was part of the many emails. I think we get 400 or 500 a week. And I scan a lot of them. I read a lot of them. I have some of my team members read a lot of them. But this one really caught my eye because it's something that could be very, very important to the American government here. And I'm going to read it. I'm going to read it later. I'm not going to read names. I'll be kind of skipping through some of it. But it was a heartfelt email about what's going on in Alberta with regard to your farms and other areas of the country with regard to your farms. So I just want to make sure that the American people who are watching and others from Great Britain and Germany, et cetera, know what's going on. Okay, so now let's get right to our guests, because I'll tell you what, fascinating young lady, and let's get right to her. Amanda Forbes. Amanda, welcome to Campaign for America.
Hi, Lieutenant Rogers. Thanks for having me. I'm just enjoying all the comments here on the side, all of these Canadians and
look
Americans
at this, right? And in there, we got people from Texas, Indiana, New York, and I've got another feed here from another platform, all Americans. All right, so we got a lot of people in the United Kingdom and Germany and a few other countries in there. So what you say is going to have impact on a lot of people. Now, my first question to you is this. You see, we don't plan things, right? I didn't really say, well, I'm going to do this. So any relation to Forbes magazine?
No. And you know what? It's funny you say that, because this gets me in trouble with a lot of people, because they're what did they call me? Amanda Cabal, because my last name is Forbes.
Wow.
So we get that go-to, right?
Yeah.
No, nothing. No relation whatsoever.
Well, I'm always asked, because my name is Steve Rogers, if I am the real Captain America. And, and that's his name. That's his name.
You say yes, though, right?
Yeah, Steve, say yes. Well, no, I don't want to get in trouble for copyright acts. I've had to tell the news media here, might want to knock that off. We're all in trouble. So I know how it is. All right. So here's what I found interesting about your background. Amanda, you are either the head of or involved, and please straighten me out on this, the Children's Health Defense of Canada. Could you tell us what this is about and how you got there?
Absolutely. Children's Health Defense actually just came to Canada last year. We put up the chapter, and our mission is to work tirelessly to end the childhood health epidemics by working to expose the causes, eliminate harmful exposures, hold those responsible accountable, which we are full bore in right now, trying to deal with that, seek justice for those who are injured, and establish safeguards to prevent future harm. So I guess where it all started was 2014 for me, when I took my youngest daughter in for her shots. So I've been in this fight for a long time. We were never anti-vaxxers. We were never anything like that. But my youngest reacted badly, and we almost lost her neurologically. And from that point on, that's when the light switch went on for me, and I turned into full-on mama bear. And I never shut up from there. Is basically where we go, right? I mean, you can cower into fear, or you can use your voice to warn others. And that's why when people say, follow the money, listen to the people who aren't getting paid, the ones that are being criminalized for what they're saying, there is something to be said for that. All we want to do is warn you. You do what you want from there. And that's where it all started for me.
Amanda, was this a voluntary, or were you mandated, or did you just follow the rules? I mean, which there's nothing wrong with
These are
that.
just simple childhood shots. These were her simple childhood shots. It was the DTaP vaccines for her that she just reacted very, very badly to neurologically. And it took me 3 years to detox her, and it worked, right? It was a lot of work. It was hardcore parenting, but it worked, and we got her back. And I'd like to say it's 100% fine now. She's been detoxed of all of those heavy metals and the garbage. But yeah, that was my wake-up call. That was my trigger or my trauma to pull me out of the system there, fully asleep, right?
You said something interesting, and I'm glad you said it, that you weren't anti-vax. And I share with people, none of us who fight for freedom and liberty are anti-vax. We're pro-freedom and pro-independence. And people should have the right to make their decision. You as a mom should have a right. You know your children's medical history, not the government. And you're a perfect point in case.
Yeah, well, this is the hill I'm going to die on. There's no way in heck I will let my children fight this battle when I brought them here.
All right, now let's segue into something that you and I talked off camera, because this is, I know, very important. I shared with you that in life there are detours, and what man meant for evil, God does for good, right? And sometimes we go into the valley of that shadow of death, like you did with your child, where God pulls you out and uses you for what you're doing now, because what you're doing now is very significant and will have impact on the lives of a lot of people. So what do you think of that way of thinking also?
I can't agree with you more. I fought with that way of thinking for a long time, because things just kept happening, and then it kept repeating until I listened, and I started listening to my gut. When this whole thing took place, it was always off for me. And I started listening to my gut and following that voice. And each step led me a little bit higher and further and got me louder, and my confidence grew, and I knew I was meant to be here. And fast forward to December 2021, my dad ended up getting one of the COVID jabs. I'm not sure how censored you are or what, but the COVID jabs. And he ended up having 9 Pfizer strokes. So that was when he was in Mexico. He's completely debilitated now. He is a Hall of Fame athlete. He's played for Canada fastball, and he's in the Hall of Fame here in Ontario. And I had to physically pull him out of the hospital because they told me he was going to die. And I knew it was a lie. So he's in my house now and he 24/7 care, but I have complete faith. God wouldn't do this twice to me without knowing who I am. And if I've gotten her detoxed and whatnot, I'll get him back too. I have no doubt.
And boy, how you're turning that those issues and problems you've had around and making it so profitable for other people to think about your story and say, hey, look, maybe, I ought to kind of wake up a little, and people need to do that. Now, let's talk about the wake up call, okay? You told me earlier, and I'm going to quote you, I'm just one pissed off mother. And I told you we got a lot of pissed off mothers here in America, and thank God they're really, really now. I mean, they're throwing a lot of people out of office. But saying that, let's talk about what you believe the Canadian people should do. And now, in this case, I'll tell you, mothers have a lot of power. I've got to tell you, I think mothers have more power than a lot of people think. And there's always, hey, just look at the mama bear. You go by the cubs or any animal, you go by your children, you're going to pay a heavy price. So now, if you could speak to mothers in America and all these countries that are watching, and especially Canada, because I'm always asked the question, what can I do, Lieutenant? What can I do? And of course, I share with people they can pray. That's important. But the Bible also says, put your faith to work. Now, you've put your faith to work. You've got a door I think people could walk through. So if you could share with people, A, how they could walk through that door and help you in your efforts, and B, now you told me you do a broadcast, correct?
Yeah, I'm a co-host on Tea Time on CHD TV. So it's uncensored TV, and it's run through head office at Children's Health Defense in the States. It's brilliant. Ever since we've been pulled off of multiple platforms, we decided to create our own TV channel. And we have doctors speaking out. We have nurses speaking out. We have the people's testaments. So people can talk to America about all of their vaccine injuries with what's going on, even though, they're saying it's safe and effective, nothing's happening and whatnot. Tea Time, it's kind of like The View, only cooler.
I like that. Is that the name of the broadcast, Tea Time?
Tea Time is the one that I do with my co-hosts Nadira and Sarah and Polly Tommy and Sheila Ely. Yep. Robert Kennedy Jr. has his podcast up on there. Mary Holland does her weekly updates. It's really, really cool because you're getting the information from all over the world. Children's Health Defense has now we have chapters all over the world, and we are keeping an eye on everything. And we are working united as a team to end this garbage and, actually get to the bottom of this misinformation that they so freely throw at us,
Well, I would say the World Health Organization better watch out. You get all those moms after you from, what you're doing. You see, what you're doing is basically what we're doing. We're challenging those establishment organizations. And fortunately, I mean, I know in Canada, the media is pretty much controlled by the government. And here, we're pretty much controlling the government. Look, I have no problems here in America with this broadcast. I've had some criticisms, but nobody's thrown us off yet. They've tried. In fact, some of your countrymen actually got in touch with law enforcement up there to get in touch with me. You see, thinking that, well, they could do something. And of course, what they forget up there is I worked with the FBI. These guys know me, all right?
Yeah.
And they know we're not going to do anything crazy. So to all of you out there who continue to send me your hate mail and trying to throw us off the air, we live by the Constitution of the United States. Why don't you come on over the border? We'll show you how great this country is. It's as great as your country. And your country is really going to be really great, much greater moving forward, because it will be freedom and liberty. That will be what people are fighting for, and will win, like the mama here is. All right, now let's talk about. Certainly, I want you to send me when you can after we're on the air your website, etc. We'll put it out there for you. I really want people all over the world to be in touch with you. This is a great cause. Now, you were involved in the freedom movement. It seems like quite some time before there was even protests and shutdowns and all that. So,
yes,
as a mother, this is important. And now I'm going to ask you to speak to the American audience as well, moms.
Okay.
Okay. A lot of mothers, and I should say that not just mothers, but a lot of Americans tend to fall asleep. I'm going to be giving a lot of speeches come 9/11. And one of the issues that I'm going to bring up is not only do we remember what happened on 9/11, but how many of us remember here in America, maybe in Canada, what happened on September 12th? And when I ask the question, I get this long stare. And that's because people have forgot that on September 12th, everywhere you went in this country, American flags were flying. You're going down a highway, American flags on cars, on windows, American flags all over the place. Our churches were filled to capacity. And that's because we were directly threatened by an enemy that we didn't know when, where, and how they were going to strike next. And so as time went on, well, the flags came down, the church pews were empty, and on and on and on. And now in America, we find ourselves probably getting in a very bad situation with China and maybe with Russia. So those flags, I hope to God, are never going to have to go up again after a tragedy, and the church is filled after a tragedy. And the reason why I bring it up, in Canada, you guys have done something very, very significant. And I mention this all the time, and that was the Truckers' Freedom Convoy. That Truckers' Freedom Convoy was so peaceful and just so well done and orderly that unbeknown to Trudeau and his government, they really sickened the world, meaning not the truckers, but the government. We have the videos. We have the windows of private property being smashed. We have guns being pointed at unarmed people. We have them. And so there's a lot of other people. So my point is this, is that I would say the best tribute, and I said this to the American people, the best way to honor the people who lost their lives at 9/11 is to carry on the fight for freedom and liberty. Don't give up. Don't lie down. So you give up an NFL game on a Sunday or you give up a bit of enjoyment during the week. Pray and take action like you are. How about, what do you say to the Canadian people regarding that particular subject?
Oh my gosh, I love my country. I do not like the leadership in any way, shape, or form. My heart was so full during this trucker rally, and it literally started as I hijacked my dad out of the hospital and couldn't get there in person, but we did send representatives from CHD to film some of it, and we did get some interviews with some of the politicians who would secretly state off the record that they agreed with what we were doing and whatnot. So I found that very interesting. The other thing I found interesting was how Trudeau hid for the entire time and tried to vilify every single person in there, whether they be 2 years old or 78 years old. It was so disgusting. And I think when I can't remember which summit it was, but when Trudeau made his appearance, it wasn't maybe it was the World Economic Forum or the WHO, one of the WHO assemblies, I'm sorry. And Christine Elliott stood up and told him to his face what a traitor he was to this country.
I saw the video.
I think right? I stood up like I was at a football game.
Amanda, let's talk about that. Let's talk about what she did. You said something very, very significant and very truthful. You said that you talked to some of your senators or parliament members, and off the record, they were agreeing with you. Why is it they're so cowards? I mean, I have no bones of contention. I tell our congressmen, speak up, speak out. Why are you so cowardly? Of course, like you said, follow the money, follow the benefits of those in office. The heck with the people, but they're cowards. So is there anybody, all right? And I asked this question in America, so it's fair game. Anybody in Canada who's in the parliament who has the guts to stand up? I know, as you said, and I've seen some of your, we get a feed from your Canadian parliament, by the way, whether they know it or not. We actually get a feed while they're having their meetings. And I've seen some of your parliament members stand up, all right, really stand up. A few of them, mostly women, by the way, stand up and tell Trudeau and that parliament what they need to do. One person who I think Christine Anderson.
Yep.
Excellent. Member of the European Parliament. We had her on the air. I mean, she has started a movement globally now. And my point is this: it goes to show you, you get a mom like you get somebody else who's maybe a trucker, you get the common folk, and boy, you're scaring the living daylights out of Parliament, the Congress, the CDC, the WHO, that wild, crazy organization called the WEF. What a bunch of crackpots in that organization, right? But even they're finding problems because what's happening, they're all for climate change, right? All for climate change. All for
right. Yeah.
Well, in America, I know you guys don't get a lot of the news, but a lot of the cars that people have been encouraged to buy, especially in California, this is kind of laughable. The World Economic Forum was pushing electric cars, climate change, pollution, and all that. So here's what happens in California. So California had a problem with their electrical grids and had to shut down the charging stations, left millions of people with electric cars without the ability to charge. And then the governor comes out and says, well, look, you with electric cars, you're only going to allow a certain amount of charging time. So then we've got electrical windmills burning down to the ground, catching fire. Yeah, folks, this is going on in America. We've got buses that are electric powered that are the batteries are blowing up. So the World Economic Forum, for all of you graduates from Harvard or whatever highfalutin school you think you're from, you're a bunch of dummies. Really, you guys are a bunch of dummies. And I'm going to give you some advice. Quit your jobs, go out on a farm, which we'll get into that later, on a farm that you think you're going to seize and not get, and just live the rest of your days out. Leave governing to the common person. They know what they're doing. So let's get back to the subject before I went on my tangent. So what can people do to help you, to help your cause of freedom and liberty in Canada? Grassroots person.
Well, we have joined with a bunch of other organizations to go forward with the global walkout. And I know you had heard about that earlier. Christina Anderson is also involved in the launch committee. Excuse me. The Reignite World Freedom is forming relationships around the world to help implement global,
You want to take a break? Take a 5-minute break. Get a glass of water. I'll take you off. I know how it feels. This happened to me the other night on national TV. All right, folks. She's gotta do what I do constantly. Sometimes you get so hoarse, etc. And she'll give me the signal, I'm sure, to come back on. But folks, this is what we're saying. This is great. I mean, these broadcasts tonight in Canada are great. We have political leaders on from around the world. We've had a lot of pastors on. We've had truckers on, and now we got a mom on who's speaking to you from her heart. And so please listen carefully, especially you over here. Yeah, south of the border of Canada, right here. All right, so let's get Amanda back on. Here we go, Amanda. How are we feeling? Well, I can't hear you.
I got my.
There we go. Gotcha.
Here we go. Sorry, I don't know where that came from, but yeah, as soon as I had heard about this, it's not about one organization. It's not about one country. It's not about one person. It's about everybody combined, because we know that what's taking place now has happened over decades. They have had decades to plan. They have had decades to organize, and the people don't get that luxury. They didn't know they needed it. Some of us did, but that's besides the point, So what it kind of shifted into, we're going to be taking steps weekly. Step 1 was posted last Sunday at 8 p.m. And it was to tell people to stop using digital currency. And it's just to slowly remove you from the globalist indoctrination that's taken place over the last however long. It's been a long time. I want to say 22 years, but we know it's been way longer than that. So we're just doing a step-by-step program to remove ourselves from their matrix. And it may sound minuscule and small-minded and whatever, but we have over 55,000 people that have joined up, 102 countries, individuals, partners. I have never seen a group of people work so closely together without ego at this point. Do you know what I mean? There's always
Oh,
ego
turf
involved.
battles, ego. I stay away from it.
Yeah,
But I hear you.
drives me crazy. There's just no time. So, people are putting their heart and soul into this, and it's great because the numbers are growing every single day. And now we know we're not the fringe. I mean, we're watching what's happening with the Dutch farmers, Sri Lanka, all over the world, and Canada as well. Canada's ready to go, and I think this fight next is going to take place in Alberta.
Let's talk about
And
that.
Alberta is Canada's Texas.
Yeah,
So
it is.
I am backing them 150%.
Well, let's
and I
talk
can't
about
wait.
that. You give
Yeah,
me a segue right into this email, which was very touching. Like I said, I don't read emails on the air, but this one really bothered me. Not the email itself. I thank God for that person that sent this to me. But this is another thing that, I got a lot of emails about this, but not as intense as this one. It says here, please consider giving this urgent matter some airtime on your Canadian edition of your show. And tonight I did. All right, last week, Deputy Prime Minister Freeland went to Grand Prairie in northern Alberta to announce the takeover of a very large tract of prime farmland for a bison sanctuary. The farmers have been given until the end of December this year to be off their land. That means walking away from their homes, their income, and their way of life. It should be noted that this land is also rich in gas and oil and comprises the only access route for pipelines to the West Coast and the port of Churchill in Manitoba. All part of Trudeau's plan to kill off Alberta. He talks about democracy, but sir, this is pure communism. Lieutenant Rogers, like you, I was raised in a beautiful, free, Christian, and democratic country. I am now retired, old, and I do not wish to die in a communist state. In my opinion, this is an emergency, and any exposure you can give this issue would be very appreciated. You tell me that is in a heartfelt letter. They don't want to die in a communist state. And I've gotten email after email after email from people in Canada. And I've shared a lot of this with our American audience on the road. We're on the road a lot, and they're stunned and shocked as to what's going on in Canada, because if we don't stop it in Canada, folks, it's going to come here. In fact, it's coming here now. Chinese Communist Party is buying up a lot of land here in the United States, but we have one governor named Ron DeSantis that put a stop to that. And hopefully in November, we're going to put more of a stop to that. But let's talk about Alberta for a minute. So my assumption is we have what's called eminent domain in the United States, where government could come on and give you the market value of your property. But they got to go through a court process. They just can't come on and say, we're taking your property. And many times the government loses. But seeing how your government has been working, is a possibility that not eminent domain, are they using some sort of law to take people's property?
I'm not 100% sure. What I've and going out there next week. There's a European Parliament member who announced her visit to Saskatchewan. Now, there's no reason for Trudeau to be in Saskatchewan. That's neither here nor there right now. Alberta, Freeland was saying something about turning it into environmentally protected areas, which means the farmers can't even farm on that property.
Yeah.
They've had that property. They've used that property for as long as they have owned it.
And the families,
and
generations maybe.
Generations. So what does it do? It squeezes the income. It forces them off their land and leaves room for China, Bill Gates, because Bill Gates is buying up Canadian farmland. He owns farmland around me here.
Yeah.
So
he's got a big surprise. He's got a big surprise coming in a few months. He's got a big surprise coming.
Yes,
he does. All right, so now here's the issue. I'm going to ask on the air tonight, and this is where now to what we were talking about, what the Canadian people could do to help. Folks, we're working on getting some farmers, hopefully from the Netherlands, on the broadcast. We're still working on that. But if you could get a few farmers to get in touch with us, I want them on the air. Because I'll tell you, there's nothing like a first-person experience and story. I could explain it. Amanda could explain it. But right, Amanda, you get somebody who's really lived through it like you, well, it's something that you can't match because you lived through it and you know how to explain it. we're going to have in the future people who lived in communist countries on the air. We do have people that we've been in touch with from China, all right, through other sources. We're going to see if somehow maybe we could record something and get them on the air. Maybe we'll have to cover their faces. I don't know, but they're eager to come on and let us all know what's going on there. But I see the influence of the Chinese Communist Party in Canada, the United States. I see if the CCP is not directly involved, certainly the members of the government there, as well as here, have some influence with the CCP. We had a senator literally in bed with a communist Chinese woman, and that came out. He got exposed. We have a situation here, as well as in Canada, that we have to come together as we have been and stop this. I believe, and before we wrap things up, I really want to talk about this part also. I truly believe that people today, and I'm talking to the audience too, you, Amanda, we talked about this earlier, all our years before now, God has somehow prepared us for today, for fighting the good fight of faith. Who would have believed here in America and in Canada, we would be fighting against the communists after the Soviet Union, the Soviet Communist Party was brought down. But here we are, history repeating itself. But we have an opportunity to learn from history, to learn from experience and do something. So Amanda, to your point, so moms and dads and people could get together, right? And here's something that when you mentioned digital currency, that came to mind. And I find this very interesting. And we have a member on our board of directors, by the way, from India. And they're educating Indian people here from India about America, about freedom. And why are we doing that as part of Campaign for America? Because the Democrats are masters at that. They're masters at indoctrinating, not educating people. So let's talk about this. Part of your movement, or part of what you're doing, do you have an educational program? And if not, maybe you could set it up where when you mention digital currency, people are asking, what's that? Or what can we do to learn more about our Charter of Rights and Freedoms? We look, we're in a mess here in America. We've got students that are learning more about sex transformation than about the Constitution of the United States. So let's talk about that for a minute. Let's talk about education. That's so important.
Yeah. Well, when all this went down and the teacher on the screen told my 5-year-old to come back from break with her mask on to sit in my own house with a mask on, that was the end of the public school system for me. Both of my children were pulled out. They are now both homeschooled. They are both they are gaining so much more knowledge. They have so much more life skills. They know the Bill of Rights. They know the Charter of Freedoms now. It blows my mind what we are not being taught. Even to go so far as cursive. If you don't know cursive, you can't read those documents. That's intentional.
Yes.
You know, it's being weeded out of our kids. You cannot let them disempower you. You cannot, we have to stop finding the negative in it. You have to start empowering yourselves to pick up the pieces, because only you can save you with the help of God. I am a firm believer in that. There is no savior. But if you're going to sit in the constant negativity of what's going on around, without even acknowledging the fact that you've been given the sight to see what's happening in order to make the change. God gave you that sight to help change this world from the ground up. So use that, you know, with your children, with what you do, with how you interact with people. You know, let's just stop fighting. Try to find the common ground. And that common ground right now for everybody is no to globalism. We want freedom. We want sovereignty. We want peace. We want our children to just play and be happy together. But people keep disempowering themselves with the agenda narrative on one hand, and, you know, that constant nattering in their head about doomsday coming.
You know, you
just
said something very significant. People disempowered themselves. And I've said, look, whether it be Joe Biden or Trudeau or the Parliament or the Congress, the Democrats here, you know, people say, well, aren't they a thorn in your side? No, we're a thorn in their side. We outnumber them by the millions, and we do have the power. So I like that. People truly disempower them. A king's not a king unless you recognize him or her as a king or a queen. So that is a very good point. Well, here's what I'd like you to do. Give us your website if you could, and then send it to me via email. And we're going to ask people, if we don't mind, use you as a reference. There may be some people who want to talk to you and help. Maybe you can help empower them. This is what Campaign for America is about. We engage and we want to help empower people and help groups like the Lions, Not Sheep, right? Is that what it says on your shirt? Lions, Not Sheep.
The Lions, Not Sheep. Yep.
We want to help this lion, Mama Lion here, do what she's doing. And like she said, with God's help, we win. So what's your website?
It's childrenshealthdefense.ca. Or you can go to childrenshealthdefense.org, which is the one in the States. There's pretty much one in every country. And there's all sorts of resources. There's television shows. There's movies, all kinds of educational materials to update yourself with. But yeah, you reach out to me if you need help. I'm always here. And I always say that if I can help you, I will.
This is amazing.
I know it's
You have one in the States. I learned from a pastor last week that in Canada who was jailed, that his superiors in the clergy are here in the States. And I'm going to go visit them. They're out west, I believe, in Ohio. Now, the goal I have is, and I will make this happen at some point, is to come to Canada. So we're going to figure that out. Of course, the question is, will Trudeau come and visit me? He may send some of his, he'll send his troops after me. But we think we got a way to speak to the Canadian people face to face without crossing the border. We really think we found a way. And I'm not talking about the internet. Isn't that fun? Hey, Justin, chew on that one, buddy. So, all right. Any last words, Amanda, to our worldwide audience here?
Oh my gosh. Keep the faith, everybody. I know it can be draining. I know you're tired. This is a marathon, but we can't undo the decades of destruction that they have inflicted in just 2 years. It's going to take us all. It's going to take a vibration that's high, and it's going to take us to the point where we need to unite again, drop the egos, come together, find the common cause, and move forward, and do it for the kids. If you don't want to do it for any of the adults, do it for the kids. They have to live with what we end up with here. And I don't want my kids living in a world that's like this today.
I do not want to die in a communist state. These were the words from a retired individual in Canada, and I assume you're watching. My friend, you're not going to die in a communist state. You're going to live in a free country called Canada. Amanda, thanks so much. We'll talk to you again. We're going to have you on the air soon.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so wonderful to be here. And if I can offer any help anywhere, you know where to find me.
Well, we're going to be in touch, all right? We're going to utilize you as a resource. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Folks, what do you think of that, huh? What a wonderful, wonderful citizen who's really given some glory to God. And you notice what she didn't do? She didn't go down the sympathy role. She didn't go down the I'm a victim role. She went down the role as I'm a lion, and I'm unleashed, and I'm untamed, and I'm going to go out there and do what I could do for my countrymen and my countrywomen. And that's what it's all about. That's what you can do. And I've said this all along. What I've said, and I continue to share with our audience here and around the world, you can do something, and you could do something significant. First and foremost, you could pray. We believe in the power of prayer, and it is through the power of prayer how we here in the United States, through this broadcast, ended up with a broadcast like tonight in Canada. It'll take a whole broadcast to really reveal to you how we ended up doing this. This wasn't by design. This was by an act of God. I really believe that. And every single guest we've had on, every single guest, these were powerful people, had powerful testimonies, and believe in a powerful God. And I know you can too. I come from the world of politics, right? The last thing on earth that a politician, many of them I met with, and so they never talk about God. Wow, you got to keep quiet. Hide this book. They'll have all kinds of books, but we don't want to walk around with this book. But this is the roadmap. This is the roadmap to what Amanda's doing, to what we're doing, and to what Christine Anderson and what you're doing. So I urge you, folks, I really urge you, take a seat back, relax, enjoy life, and know we outnumber them, that we are thorn in their side. It's not the other way around. And in the end, and I've said this all along, because we've seen it through history, that the enemies of freedom and liberty always end up in the ash bin of history. Always. But it is you, grandma, grandpa, mom, dad, aunt, uncle. It is you. It is your name that will be written in the books of history. A history that nobody could ever take away. A history for freedom and liberty. That's it, folks. What a great broadcast. Now, Monday night, will we be here Monday night? Yes, we will. Tonight in America, Monday night, and then next week again, tonight in Canada. And we're going to move along, and we're going to just thank God that He has opened our eyes. He's awakened America. He's awakened Canada. And when it comes to Great Britain and the other people from around the world watching, believe me, we're going to help you awaken to the fight for freedom and liberty. That's it, folks. Stand by a minute. We're going to close out. And by the way, Detours, one thing good about having a book on PDF, nobody's ever done this before, is we can never tell you we're out of stock. How do you get out of stock if it's a PDF? Can't do that, folks. It's always available. So think about that book. There's Detours in life. If you ever believed or thought that God abandoned you, folks, you're going to want to read that book. We've gotten literally hundreds of letters from people who have got it, and I just thank God for that. All right. Thanks a lot. God bless you, folks. Take care. God bless Canada, and God bless America. Thanks for watching.